Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Shrutis Smruti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Druk Tadrishyam Druktumanasam. We have seen up to that. Tat lochanam, that eyesight is once again, it becomes drishya. It started as a druk, but becomes drishya. Then if eyesight is a drishya, who is the druk? What is the druk? Manasam, mind is the druk. Now one more time, mind becomes drishya, and then what is the druk? Up to this everybody knows. Everybody is familiar up to this point. They are familiar with the forms, familiar with the eyesight cognizing the forms, also familiar with the mind which is knowing various stages of eyesight and hearing faculty, etc. So mind is the common overseer above the 5 organs, sense organs, and also organs of action. Mind is the 11th, 5 plus 5 plus 1. That is the mind. Up to that point we are all familiar. So up to that point there is no big deal. It is all known to you. Just it is restated. To take us, it is restated by the Shastra, to take us to a higher dimension. Up to that it is physical dimension and psychological dimension. Physical is not mentioned. It started with the sense organs, but then the scaffold, the physical body, is required to hold all these sense organs in place. So, physical is included in a way. So physical dimension and then psychological dimension. These two are well known to us. We assume that we are the psychological dimension. This is what is called identification. You identify with the physical as well as psychological dimension. Therefore, you are a physical entity and then you are a psychological entity. That is how we take ourselves. And that is how we live an entire life. And then you walk into a Vedanta class. Then you are told that there is one more dimension, which is deeper. You have to say something, deeper or higher. When it is said deeper, it is not depth in a physical sense. When it is said higher, it is not height in a physical sense. Okay? That is a metaphoric expressions they are. So there is a deeper dimension, and it is in Sanskrit it is called Atma. And in English, many authors, many scholars who have put all these works into English, they used the word spirit. Nothing wrong with it. Okay? So therefore there is the spirit. Not just the body, organs and the mind, but also there is the spirit. Now I say it, you hear it, and then go home getting this knowledge. What is the knowledge? Your neighbor doesn't know that there is a spirit in addition to body, mind. Whereas you know, you know. That is the knowledge. The worldly people don't know that there is a thing called spirit. The religious people don't know. The temple crowd, they don't know that there is a spirit. They are all equally identified with the body-mind as much as the worldly people. Now you know that there is one more. That is the spirit. In fact, you can present a posture before all these people. You look at yourself. You don't know that there is one more dimension, whereas we know. They do that. That makes no sense, Because the point is, do you know? Yes, we know. But do you really know? So that means there is a distinction there. So knowing is called conceptual knowledge. You know, something you know. So a concept, also called idea. There is a process in the mind. The process is well recognized in psychology, and the name of the process is ideation. That is the process. You get an idea, and that idea is sitting in your head. So in that sense, you are superior to the person who doesn't have that idea in his head. I give an example. You see, I was in a high school in a village, studying in high school, living in Gurukulam, but going to the high school, just for fun's sake. And anyway, 1 year after the other, came out of the high school successfully. In the high school, there was a subject called social studies in those days. And in that, some geography is also taught. As part of that geography, there is an information that at the border of in North America, there is a waterfall called Niagara. That is the name. It's an interesting name because we were studying Sanskrit. This is Akaranta Strilinga Shabda it is. Niagara, like Shyamala, Vasundhara. So like that Niagara. It looks like a Sanskrit Shabda. In fact, there is a temple in Niagara. I went there on the Canadian side. There the Ishvara is called Niagareshwara. So it is Niagareshwara temple. So they too felt that it is a Sanskrit word that can compound with Ishvara, So Niagara was a very, very interesting word. So no way of forgetting it. So, and in the exam, that question comes. There is a paper called BIT paper, objective questions paper. And so there he asks, what is the world famous waterfall? So you have to write Niagara. You will get 2 marks. That is the game. And so the question came, and I wrote Niagara. But my neighboring student, he doesn't know. He asked, what is that? What is that? So I told him Niagara. Oh, Niagara. Then he wrote. He too got 2 marks. So knowledge, This is the knowledge. Then I came here. Unexpectedly I came here. Not that I planned to come here. There is a story for it. I don't want to digress. So Puja Swamiji brought me here rather than I coming here. So he is going and I will be going also. Then he asked me, did you see Niagara? I said, he did ask, do you know Niagara? Yes, I know. Did you see Niagara? No, I did not. You see the difference? So I know the Niagara, but I did not see the Niagara. Then he told our Ashok Bhai, I send him to Niagara one time. So a person has taken us, 3 or 4 of us, to Niagara. Then I have seen it. Now, the word Niagara has dropped. It is not there in the consciousness. The idea of Niagara being the best Jalapatam, the best waterfall in the world, or greatest waterfall in the world, that idea also not there. The mind became quiet. You can call it stunned, that also you can say, but it became quiet. And there the thing is. That is the thing. So now how many stages are there? The name, the idea. Another name for form is idea. The name, Niagara. And an idea about this blessed thing called Niagara is also there, but not the thing. Now there is the thing right before you. That is called seeing. That is, I don't want to call it knowing, because knowing is already reserved for idea, Knowing means ideation, the process of ideation. The word knowledge is already reserved for all mechanism of ideation. So when you say knowledge, it could be a mere idea. When you say I know, it could be just a mere idea. That is all you have. Do you know Vaikuntha? Yes, I know Vaikuntha. You have an idea of Vaikuntha, whatever that Vaikuntha means. What all you have is a bunch of words and corresponding ideas implanted in the brain. That is all you have. Nothing more than that. What about the thing? So people believe, or somehow it enters into their head that the idea is the thing. The name associated with the idea is the thing. This is how people function. First thing they have to understand is the idea, the name associated with an idea called nama rupa. Rupa is the idea. So, is not the thing. It is not the thing. In fact, I would take one more step. It is not even directly connected to the thing, because by the time you face the thing, you are with the thing face to face, the nama rupa drop. They will not be there. So, in some silly things, table, chair, etc., their nama, rupa, thing all may go together. But when it really comes to the real thing, when you are face to face with the thing, nama, rupa drop. That's why the spiritual dimension, when you are face to face with it, it happens to be yourself, your true self. But we live away from it as though it is the other. And so when you are face to face with it, the psychological and physical dimensions, they resolve. They will not be lingering around. They just resolve. Therefore, you have to accomplish that leap, that quantum leap you have to accomplish. That is called study of Vedanta. Without attempting this leap, this all-important leap, from Namarupa to the thing, to the Vastu, in Sanskrit we put it that way. So you have to move out of Namarupa into the thing. You have to accomplish that. That is called study of Vedanta. If you don't accomplish it, you are not even looking for accomplishing it, just studying Vedanta texts. That is what we call conceptual study. There is no value in it. Value in the sense, in a worldly sense it may have some value, but you may appear as a scholar and all that. But in the real sense there is no value in it. You remain a bag of bones like anybody else. Therefore that shift from the Namarupa to the Vastu, that shift has to happen. That is what the Acharya is pushing all of us. He is pushing. Come on, take one more step behind or one more step higher. So, launch yourself into that higher dimension of the spirit, the spiritual dimension. The name for it is Atma. Okay? But then the spiritual dimension cannot be introduced in itself. You cannot introduce in itself, as itself. You have to introduce it through the drishya. So provisionally present the psychological dimension as the druk, which it is with reference to the physical, and present it, and you are familiar with it also, and then through that take you into the higher dimension. That is the job. That is the job the speaker has to do. And that can be done only with the cooperation of the students. It has to be done together. It's not that I have the dimension in my pocket and I will give to all of you like Tirtham and Prasadam. There is a culture in us, among Hindus there is a culture, Tirtham and Prasadam. Yeah, I don't see any value in it. It is all a custom. As a custom you may stay with it. No harm in it, no value in it. So, therefore it is not some Tirtham and Prasadam that I give to you. You do come and do Namaskar, I give tirtham and prasadam. Tirtham with a spoon and prasadam already packed and kept. So give one prasadam. Laddu. They do this kind of things they do, which have no value, which distract people from the real. People get distracted. You put a dozen such things around them, so they are already not really trying for the vastu. Okay? There is a sense of complacency with the unreal, and the ideas are taken as the truth, and they are satisfied in a silly way with the ideation, and now put half a dozen other things and start doing a few other things. So now the distraction is complete. Nobody raises the question of the vastu. It is a kind of collective amnesia. So it happens like that. This is how the religion and the philosophy get mixed up. Start the journey in search of truth and end up in a set of beliefs. So this is all the build-up to push you into spiritual dimension through the mind. Now the mind is not the real Drig or the seer, it is still the seen only. But then what is mind? You should know what is mind. So this is the side benefit. The drugs have side effect, right? Here we have side benefit. Our goal is not mind, but our goal is the spirit, Atma. But in the process, we end up studying the mind also. And that has got many benefits. So side benefits, okay? So let us examine the mind now and then take it as a conduit or a stepping stone for the spirit. It is called stepping stone for the spirit. And therefore, then let us launch ourselves into the spirit. So that would have done a great job in this study session. Okay? So let us go to the fourth verse. Third I am done with. Kamas sankalpa sandehau Shraddha shraddhe dhrutitare Hrirdhir bhirityeva madin Bhasayatye kadha chitihi. So mind is not one thing. Mind is a bag. Sometimes we call it consciousness. Some people use the word consciousness to mean the spirit, the higher dimension. Some people use it. But when they use it, they put a capital C in the book, just to make a distinction. Nothing wrong in it. Okay? But here, the higher dimension is being presented as Sakshi. It is coming in the next line. I have not yet brought the next line. So it is presented as Sakshi. Sakshi has to be translated to get the entire vision as witnessing awareness. Therefore, having settled with that expression, you have to put an expression, you know. So it is in Sanskrit and we are teaching in English medium. Therefore you have to put the words in English. You cannot say it is non-translatable. You cannot say that kind of a posturing has no value. And make all words that cannot be translated. And make a big dictionary of non-translatable words. And all these words become most of them will come under non-translatable, suppose. Then what will you do? Why you teach in English? Why don't you go back to India and teach in Telugu? So you will not have this issue. Therefore, nothing like non-translatable. You have to make an effort to translate. Sometimes you may not get exact word-to-word translation, like pani, water. You may not get it that way. But you use a phrase, a bunch of words, 2 or 3 words, to translate. You have to translate. Therefore, Sakshi, I am translating as, word to word you can say witness, but I am translating as witnessing awareness, because that chiti is also involved. Chitihi has come. Chitihi is awareness. Therefore, I reserved the word awareness which is the witness, the witnessing awareness for that spirit, that Atma, that gives me a felicity to use the consciousness in a slightly different sense. So when you wake up, so you wake up into what is called waking consciousness. And what is this waking consciousness? It is the background of the mind's movement. And so mind is moving and there is the waking consciousness in the background. So on the substratum of waking consciousness, there is a lot of movement. It is like there is a water body and waves are coming. That is the how. Therefore, that is the waking consciousness which includes the movement of the mind. Are you satisfied with that description? So, what is this waking consciousness? I am saying waking consciousness to make it very clear to you. Now I can drop the word waking also and just present it as consciousness. So that is how others do. All Mahatmas do that way. Therefore, so what is this consciousness? Consciousness is defined as the content of consciousness. It is something like you check in the airport, a bag. You check in a bag. What is bag? What is the bag? The content of the bag. That is what bag is, right? So similarly, the consciousness is the content of consciousness. You can call it mind also. Okay? But mind is used in a different sense. When the emotions are being pointed out, the word mind is used. But in a general way, you can call it mind, if you wish. But generally, we don't do it. We keep it as consciousness, and that includes the entire movement of the mind, and also including emotions. And then certainly you cannot call it intellect, because intellect has a very specific meaning. So, the brain itself has two lobes. One lobe is intellect lobe. The other lobe is emotions lobe, which is called mind. Therefore, intellect is not the entire consciousness. It is only one part of the consciousness. You tell me what is 7 into 13? So 91. That is intellect. So 7 into 13 is the intellect. So keep it, intellect. Then other movement of the mind. All of this is the content of that bag called consciousness. And he is describing that consciousness. So that consciousness has desires. Kamaha. When he says kamaha, it is not one desire, okay? It is like the cow is a sacred animal. So where the word cow means only one cow is sacred animal? No, okay? This is called jatav ekavachanam. Any cow. It is not just one cow. Any cow. Similarly, kamaha means not one desire, any desire. In general, sarve kama, all desires that you entertain. People have variety of desires, right? In fact, if you look at your consciousness, you can clearly notice that how it is moving. You have to do this. This is the job to be done. It is not just reading a book or a verse. It is a avalokanam. You have to look within and examine the entire movement of mind, which is part of that waking consciousness. So in that, there is a thing called kamaha. Kamaha is you may be having a variety of desires in your mind. You desire this, you desire that. So I have to go to India. That is a desire. Nothing wrong in it. So that is a desire. I want to. Some of the desires are very innocuous. They are very simple ones. Don't hurt the person. But some of them are very dangerous. So some of the desires. I want to become a millionaire. You never know. Suppose you take all your money and put into some securities. The securities are the most insecure way of depositing money. And people become paupers. Overnight they lose everything. So what can you do? So, therefore, that kind of a desire is very hurtful. So, whatever the dynamic of desires, and you have to understand the dynamic of desire also. So, that is an important content of consciousness. You have to look within. And so, how am I entertaining this desire? Desires. It becomes a habit with people. So, they have all kinds of desires. So, they cannot live in comfort. Wherever you put them, they cannot live in comfort. They are always uneasy and disturbed because something or the other is missing. The desires are too many, something or the other is missing. Wherever you put them, they go on complaining about something or the other. We have a name for such people back in India, Firyadi Ram. That is his name. Ram is a name you give to everybody. So, Siya Ram, this Ram, that Ram. So here we have a Firyadi Ram, means complaining Ram. That is his name, Mr. C. Ram. C is a complaining Ram. Because he has always so many desires, something or the other he finds missing or lacking. That sense of dearth, lack, is very much there. That is what desire is. You feel a sense of insufficiency all the time in you. That is the desire. Now you want to keep the desire, go ahead, God bless you, keep it. And you will suffer from it. Because it makes you permanently insufficient. That is how desire functions. Therefore, that is an important aspect of the consciousness. There are shades within that kama. You desire an object, you desire a position, and some of the Vaidikas, they desire heaven. They are hung on the desire for heaven. That you see among Vaidikas. They do elaborate rituals like Agnishtoma, etc., which is 5 days. They have to keep fast 5 days, Diksha, this, that, a very difficult ritual. But they perform it with a lot of gusto. They perform it because they want to go to heaven. Then what will you do with heaven? They have all the description of the heaven. Every nook and corner of the heaven is mapped and recorded there, called conceptual knowledge. Okay? So this is how the story goes on, the Vaidikas. Then look at other religions. They have all kinds of desires to go to heaven, etc. These are the religious desires. People go to religion, and the religion, instead of teaching them some simplicity and a good heart, love, etc., the religion teaches them desires. Putrarthi labhate putran. Till then he did not wonder about putras, but now he will start wondering about putras. And putrarthi is not putrasyarthi, not ekavachanam, it is bahuvachanam. Okay? Putran is there, you know, that is bahuvachanam. Dhanarthi labhate dhanam. Then some more desires are there. I made a list of all these desires, which religion pushes your way. You are maybe a simple person, not having all these desires before reading some of this religious literature or before being instructed by some of these gurus. But once you are into it, now you have a different set of desires in you. Then worldly desires. These are all there in the consciousness, kamaha. Then sankalpa. Sankalpa is mere simple thought process. You need sankalpa to go to your room. The class will be over. Then you have to go to your room, pick up a cup of tea or coffee. To do all those daily chores, you need thought process. Unless there is thought behind, the hand doesn't move. I am moving my hand because there is a thought behind it. Okay? You drive the car, there is thought behind that driving. So the thought drives the entire life. The body is a machine, like a car. And so the thought drives this car, this machine called the body. Therefore, that thought process, simple thought process. not a particular kind of thought, general thought. It is called sankalpa. Then sandeha, doubts are there, so many doubts are there. Some of these doubts, they are expressed. But sometimes people don't even express the doubts because they are afraid. Suppose you raise a question. Suppose somebody says, God will give you this or give you that. Then you ask a question. What is God? Why should He give anything to me? What could be the reason for that? Human beings themselves are 7 billion. And then God's creation consists of not only human beings, it consists of so many other life forms, billions and billions of life forms. So, in all this life, God selects me particularly and grants my desire. What could be the reason for that? Suppose he asks that question. Then the Guru, Shesham Kopena Porayet, he becomes angry with me. That is because there is no answer for it. Therefore, people don't raise questions. They don't raise questions. You better raise questions. So what they do is, the mind is trying to bring up a question, and or a doubt, you suppress it. You suppress it. So you should not have any doubts. If you ask a doubt, so if you in some of these Abrahamic faiths, etc., if you ask a doubt, they will tell it is the devil speaking through you. Therefore now you are afraid of asking a doubt because you will be devilized. Something interesting. A similar thing operations in the Indian variety of religious situation also. It is exactly the similar thing operates. May not be to that extent, but it is always there. Therefore, but if you give a freedom to the mind, it does have a set of questions, and it would love to know. So that questioning attitude is also part of that consciousness. And if answer is given, you feel very happy. When you know something as an answer to your question, so the question is resolved now, you feel there is a joy in it. So, therefore, sandeha, questioning, and then seeking answers, etc., is also an important part of the consciousness. Then shraddha. So you may not know it with proof and all that, but you are willing to take it with you, with love. You take it with love. Some of these religious practices, you don't know what is the practice, you don't know what it will bring to you, but still there is a custom to pursue it, and elders are doing it, and you have a value for the elders, you love them, and therefore you go along with it. And you are sure that it will have some good effect. That is called shraddha. Then ashraddha. In many things, you do not have that kind of love and enthusiasm. That is shraddha. Shraddha is enthusiasm. So you do not have any enthusiasm for some of the things. In fact, you are averse to a few things. That aversion, that is called ashraddha. Then dhriti is courage. And not only courage, it is tenacity. You hold on to it tenaciously. That is called dhriti. This is there in Gita also. Satviki dhritihi, rajasi dhritihi, tamasi dhritihi. So, come what may, I should have 2 donuts and coffee in the morning. That is called tamasi dhritihi. So that is also a dhruti. Just I am giving you dhruti. So satviki dhritihi. I have to study Vedanta. Daily 1 page mananam must be there. I cannot avoid it. And so I have to persevere that way. So you persevere with this study and with the contemplation and search for the truth. So you persevere with it. So you are earnest about it. That is called satviki dhritihi. Then there is a dhriti called rajasi dhritihi. That is ambition, competition, greed, making more money, pursuing the pleasures of the world with a lot of gusto. All of that is Rajasi Dhritihi. There is an interesting name for it in psychology. It is called type A personality. You know that. That is Rajasi Dhritihi. Tamasi Dhritihi is all about eating. The gluttons, etc. That is all Tamasi Dhritihi. So some dhriti or the other is there in the consciousness. And then itara means negligence, the opposite of dhriti. You neglect it, you don't care for it. Let it go, I don't care. That is the opposite of dhriti. Towards certain things. That is also part and parcel of the consciousness. Just I am explaining the verse to you. Okay. Then, so once I complete the list, then I will go and examine the mind a little more in detail. So, hrihi. Hrihi is, it has got two meanings. You see, a young lady, she is endowed with some gracefulness and she feels that abashed, they call it like that, okay? Lajja. So she has a sense of so very polite and very composed and very quiet. That kind of an attitude which a young lady has, I am not getting the right word for it. The absence of it, if it is not there, then they say, oh, a very unabashed person, like that. In a negative sense they say, but the positive sense of it is called lajja in Sanskrit. So in a good sense, in a positive sense, it is a good quality. So that ladies have it mostly, okay? So that is called hrihi. And it is said, hrihi is the consort of the Lord, like that. Means it's a good quality. Okay? Then in men, suppose you feel shame to tell a lie or to do a wrong thing, to do himsa, and then to conspire against somebody, you don't like it at all. You feel a shame in you. No. It is very shameful. I won't do that. So when you have that kind of a sense of shame, in order to keep away from adharma, that sense of shame is a very good quality it is. We have to keep it. The sense of embarrassment. Suppose you make a mistake, you commit an error, then you feel embarrassed. So that helps you, you know. When you feel embarrassed, then you will not do it again. Suppose you don't care, I care 2 hoots, then you will do it again and again. People are like that. Therefore, that sense of shame to do a wrong thing and a sense of embarrassment when you commit an error, that is called hrihi in the case of men. And it can apply to women also. But women have this additional quality of feeling shy. That is the word, shyness. Okay? So that is called hrihi. Dhihi, intellect. Intellect. Some of you are engineers, and therefore that all knowledge of engineering is there in your brain cells. Dhihi, the way to put it is accumulated knowledge. That is dhihi. You accumulate it and keep it. You accumulate from the childhood, go to the primary school, then high school, then enter college, then college, university. Like that you accumulate lot of knowledge. They call it knowledge. Then you don't use the word knowledge for Atmajnanam, because you call this accumulated knowledge as knowledge. Atmajnanam is not accumulated knowledge. This is one distinction. Please don't mind my saying this. I am not saying out of any flamboyance or arrogance. I am not saying in that sense. I am saying with a sense of speaking the truth and love. Many Vedanta people, they fail to see the distinction between accumulated knowledge versus understanding. Understanding is never accumulated knowledge. It doesn't come by accumulation and it doesn't accumulate. Okay, it doesn't accumulate. There is a thing which accumulates and there is a thing that doesn't accumulate. Okay? So, you will, if you pay attention, you can know all that. For example, just for lack of a better example, I am giving this. So you study mathematics. So begin with arithmetic, then go to some algebra, then go to calculus. Like that you accumulate. Right? That is how it has to be done. That is the way. There is no other way. That is accumulated knowledge. After it takes time and effort. And after a few years, you are a good professor of mathematics. But suppose children do not know that if they put the finger in the fire, it will burn. They don't know that. That's why children, if there is fire, in the earlier days, there used to be the cooking, the cooking instrument on the ground. They put a wood and burn it and cook food. It is at the ground level. Okay, stove, cooking stove. And children are playing on the ground. And therefore mother has to keep an eye all the time. As long as the fire is burning, the mother has to keep the eye on the child. Because the child looks at the fire and it crawls towards the fire and holds it. That is the fear. Okay? The child will know one day, it knows one day, earlier or later, that fire burns. It knows. It is not knowledge. It is learning. You can call it learning. You can also call it understanding. That knowledge, that is not knowledge. That understanding, that wisdom, you can call it if you wish, it remains with the child whole life. And it doesn't accumulate. Means it doesn't connect with another understanding. If connect, you see the difference? It is there with you. It won't go away. It is there with you whole life. But not as an accumulation. If it is accumulation, you are likely to forget it. Whatever you collect gets disintegrated. You put all the sand together and come after 1 week. All the sand gets disintegrated. That is entropy. Okay? Similarly, you put a lot of mathematics into your head and then slowly all of it will go away. So many mantras you put into the head. Now you cannot hold on to all those mantras. They will vanish. This is how accumulation works. But understanding, it will never vanish. It is not accumulated knowledge. Now this self-realization, where do you want to put it? You have to give a thought to it. Look at the way it operates around the world. Many of them very wrongly put it in the process of accumulation. Therefore they say, we are studying Vedanta for 2 decades, for 100 years, for 10 years. We are studying Gita for a 4th time. All these statements come. Because somehow you put the entire knowledge, or wisdom it is, the entire wisdom to distinguish from knowledge. So the entire wisdom you put into the category of accumulation and treat it as something to be accumulated. Like, for example, I can say I have taught 5 verses and now I have to teach the remaining verses. If that is the way I approach it, that is a way of accumulation. You approach it that way, that is accumulation. You can question me, hey, what is it? You have taught only 5 verses. There are other 10. Who will teach those 10? That is called accumulation. I tell, forget about how many verses you have read. Get a message. That is, a message is not accumulation. Learning is not accumulation. Therefore, this dhi, that accumulated knowledge, is part and parcel of waking consciousness. And the self-realization doesn't fit into that category. It is beyond the psychological dimension. Okay? If it is part and parcel of accumulated knowledge, by now we would have become self-realized souls 10 times over. Right? But it is not so. Therefore, that distinction you have to make. Then bhi is fear, insecurity. Fear is, what you consider fear is not fear. What people think fear is not fear. Suppose you are walking behind on the Fall Stick Road. This is bear country. I have seen bear once or twice. Suppose you suddenly come across a bear, then you take steps back. You are not advised to proceed any further. Silently you retrace your steps, don't disturb the bear, and move as far away from the bear as possible. Safeguard yourself. People look at it as fear. Is that fear or intelligence? It is intelligence. It is not fear. Shall I tell you what is fear? Not necessary. Okay, I will tell, but don't comply. You keep a chart before you and a plan what is 2023 has got for me. You are calculating. So Shani is looking with a squinted eye towards Guru. Guru is a Brahmana, Shani is a Shudra. You have taken caste system into the planets. Why Shani is a Shudra? Why not Shani Brahmana and Guru Shudra? Because Shani brings bad luck. Look at this. Do you like it? So you are calculating what Shani will do in 2023, what Rahu will do, what Shukra will be doing, what Guru will be doing, you will be calculating. And call it knowledge. Is it knowledge or fear? It is fear. It is a 110% insecurity, it is. No surprise, people remain insecure all their life. Because they have given insecurity the status of knowledge. It is not knowledge. What it is, I will not tell you. So, bhi. So you have to understand bhi correctly. You think of the future and then become anxious. That is bhi. You think of your wards, your children, and what will happen to them in the future. Oh, he did not pass the exam. What will happen to him? So you are worried. That is bhi. Then if you are worried about normal children who are doing all right, more or less, some exam, some less marks here and that, but otherwise they are normal people. But what about autistic children and other children, mentally handicapped? Physical handicap is all right, you can manage with it. Mental handicap is a more serious problem. And parents have autistic children. They will have enormous sense of insecurity about the future of the children or child. That is bhi. Not when you see a serpent, real serpent, going there, and you step back. That is not bhi. That is the life is striving to safeguard itself. It is a response of life to safeguard itself. There is no mind at that time. That is not bhi. If you want to call it something, you call it intelligence. When there is a serpent, you step back. That is intelligence. It is not bhi. Therefore, you have to correctly understand what is fear. A sense of insecurity. When you depend psychologically on the other person, then you are afraid. You are insecure. If the other person doesn't oblige you, what will happen to me? You are insecure. If you depend psychologically, not physically, psychologically on money, wealth, then as long as wealth is, bank balance is in good shape, you are okay, you are more or less comfortable. But if the bank balance dips or stock market dips, you become very insecure. What will happen to me? Somebody came to me and asked, Swamiji, I want to become a sannyasi. How much money I should accumulate before I decide to become a sannyasi? I told him, as long as this idea that accumulate a certain amount of capital, then you can become a sannyasi and that will be enough for the rest of the life. It will take care of you for the rest of the life. As long as this idea persists in your head, don't talk of sannyasa. When you are ready, you are holding on to something called bank balance, you are ready to give it up. Where will you fall? Wherever I may fall, I am giving up this. And I am ready for whatever consequences. Then you come for sannyasa. So, you look at the person wants to take sannyasa, but the sense of insecurity is holding him. Look at that. The retirement is another very good example. 401k funds, this and that. They are all insurance. All these are so many mechanisms born out of the sense of insecurity. All these things, ityeva madin, all these things you have to examine, not in the book. You have to read the book of your mind. That is the book you have to read. That is the Drig Drishya Viveka. And as you read that book, you have to examine whether you have that sense of insecurity in you. You have to examine. I look at myself and ask myself, am I afraid of death? No. Good. Am I afraid of illness? Maybe yes. That means there is some identification. I have to work on it. So, are you afraid when you are alone? No. Good. You are not psychologically dependent upon somebody. Therefore, like that, you have to read the book of your life, the book of your mind. In fact, I am proposing to you, the more you read the book of your mind, that is the book you have to read, not these printed books. What will be there in the printed books? Some good guidance will be there. They are like pointing finger. Nothing more than that. They will not have vastu, the real. Real will be in you. And the mind is there as a gatekeeper. That doesn't allow you to embrace the reality. It is there. It is standing as an obstacle. You are the Brahman already. You are that already. But you don't feel it. You don't feel that divinity. You don't feel that fullness. So you ask yourself, do I feel inadequate? You ask yourself. Like I ask myself, do I feel inadequate? No. I had my coffee already. What is there to feel inadequate? I don't feel inadequate. Good. That is the fullness. That is Brahma. Brahma is not a huge boulder or any such thing. You feel the fullness. In fact, it's more negative. You do not feel the sense of inadequacy. That is Brahma. You do not feel insecurity. That is Brahma. You feel love for all. Even you love the door to a point that you don't bang it. You just close it carefully because you love it. You love the door. You love the piece of cloth. You don't want to spoil it. You love a paper. Don't want to waste it. Either you use it or you recycle it, something you do because you love it. So when you love these insentient objects, what to speak of people? You love the trees, birds, plants, flowers, and people, including those who throw some dust on you. So whatever, doesn't matter. You love all. That is divinity. That is your true, that is the Brahma. Brahma is not a huge boulder or any such thing with which you have to find your oneness with. Therefore, when you feel that way, you have to feel it. It is not intellectual lecturing. That has no value. It doesn't serve much purpose. You have to feel it. Do you feel your divinity? Yes, I feel that divinity on and off. That means you are already it. But something is preventing it to manifest fully. And what is that something? The mind. You see, you just can't feel your fullness or your Brahmanhood. You don't feel it or you can't feel it only because your mind is making too much noise. No, mind has nothing to do with Brahman. True, mind has nothing to do with Brahman. Just like clouds have nothing to do with the sun. But clouds are enough to cover the sun. So similarly, mind is making too much noise, and it acts as a veil over your Swarupa, your Brahmanhood. You see, what is Brahman, you know? Love. People say, present Brahman in a very intellectual way. So, Desha Kala Vastu Parichannam Brahma, like that, you can do that, which is all right. But to put it in very practical terms, you feel a sense of love. You have to understand what love is also. Love is not sentimentality. Love is not attachment. So you have to come to love in a very negative way. You have to dismiss all sentimentality and attachment and aversion, all those things. Then you come into love and you feel love. You feel it to all. Samashatraucha mitrecha, Gita. You feel that sense of love towards a friend as well as the foe equally. So that love is Brahma. Raso Vaisaha. Now you tell me, are you not the Brahman on and off? Are you not the Brahman intrinsically? You may not feel it for a different reason, but you are already Brahman. This is the reason why you have to study the composition of the mind. How mind is composed. So, mind is not Chetana. Brahman, Atma is the Chetana, sentience, whereas mind is insentient. It is physical, it is material, as much as the table and the chair are the physical body. You see, the table is material thing. Physical body is no different. It is equally material thing. Bhautika, Bhautika Deham they call it, you know. Bhautika Deham means what? The body is that which the table is, which the chair is. That is what the body is. What about the mind? Just the same. It is also material thing. It is a physical entity, insentient, but very subtle. Generally, I give this example of sand. Sand doesn't reflect sun, because sand is very coarse and the surface is very rough. It doesn't reflect the sun. But you melt the sand. Sand melts. 2000 degrees, if you heat it, melts. And the molten sand you pour. It forms a mirror. That mirror reflects the sun. Mirror is the sand only. What you call mirror is sand only. But it reflects the sun. Sand, if you go to the beach, that doesn't reflect the sun. Both are of the same construct, or same material. Body and mind are like that. They are made of the same material, the Panchabhutas, same construct. Yet, body doesn't reflect the Atma as much as the mind reflects. Mind is very subtle. Yet, it is a physical thing and it is mechanical thing. It is a machine. Every machine has a process. Every machine functions and produces. Mind also functions, moves and produces thoughts. So what you call mind is the machine of thought process. Therefore, you have to know that clearly. Mind is a flow of thoughts. That is what mind is. Now suppose you look into yourself. You look at yourself and notice there is a flow of thoughts. That is the mind. Suppose suddenly you notice that there is no thought around. There is no thought. Then what? Who knows that there is no thought? There is no thought around, no thought. Are you not aware of the thoughtless state of the mind? Are you not aware? You are aware. Okay? When you sneeze, how many thoughts you will have? Sneezing takes 10 seconds time. During that time you think? You don't think. You are thoughtless. Just I gave a crude example. But the thoughtlessness, which is a gap between a thought and another thought, it is with you. The thoughtless state of thoughtlessness, if you pay attention, when you pay attention to something, the thought comes to an end. And then thought begins again. Therefore, this process, this thought process, is known to whom? It is known to you. That's why you watch your mind. As you watch your mind and understand the mind as the thought process, understand the intricacies of the mind, the content of the mind, etc., in doing so, you gain that space with reference to the mind. In a way, to study the mind, to understand the mind, you stand apart from the mind and understand the mind. That is when you look within. But if you read a book on mind, you don't stand apart from the mind and understand mind. You develop ideas about mind in your mind. Okay. And those ideas have no value unless they really take you to the inner reality. Therefore, so somebody asked me, who is witness? I tell you, you are the witness. Where from I bring witness and keep before you? You are the witness. Are you aware of how do I know I am witness? Are you aware of your mind or not? Yeah, I am aware. The witness knows that he is the witness. When you are aware of the mind, which is a thought process, and it is functioning, you are aware. That space you should develop. You identify, then you are not even aware of what is going on. So, there is a thought or an emotion, you are aware of it. That means you are already free from that emotion. You have stepped back from the emotion, then only you become aware of the emotion. You are free from the emotion. And who is that is free from the emotion? The one who is aware of the emotion. That is the one. Right? And let us give a name to it. Sakshi. We'll come to it tomorrow. So the study of the mind part, the fourth verse we have concluded in a way. And tomorrow we'll continue this study of the mind and then attach the vision of Sakshi into it. That makes the study complete. Now our Sri Shuddhatma has come. I have a feeling that you have something to say to our friends. That is the reason you came, right? So he will say something to you. Please pay attention. Om Purnamada Purnamidam.